We're just allowing everybody to come in at this moment. Just join. I put in the chat our links to our previous webinars as well. And everybody is very welcome to today's webinar, which is looking at what really happens when a guardian is appointed and meets the child. So just focusing on the practical aspects of that. So just giving a few minutes as people are coming in. But we might begin because we are going to be tight on time as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And just wanted to say, last week's webinar, there may have been a little bit of an issue with the sound and the video, and I think that was where I was located, seemed to be cutting in and out a little bit. So if anything like that is happening or people are experiencing difficulties, if you just pop it in the chat for us, so I can hopefully address it. But we will recap very quickly here as well. But just to say, we are recording these webinars, so they are there for people to go back on or to use as a resource or show other people who are in similar situations. And the focus, for those who don't know, my name is Niamh McCarthy. I manage the Parental Advocacy service here at Barnardos. And a lot of our parents who are going through childcare proceedings put forward questions for these webinars that we can, in this webinar today, put forward to Claire, who's the guardian ad litem, and in other instances, solicitors or psychologists or whoever is participating in the webinars. So like I said, in the chat is the links to our previous webinars. And I'm going to let Claire introduce herself as well today. So I'm going to hand over to Claire now for a minute.
Thanks, Niamh. I'm Claire Brogan. I'm a guardian ad litem with Barnardos. I'm also dual role at the moment. I'm a practice manager within the service, but I've been a guardian ad litem for the last, I think, 12 or 13 years. So, yeah.
Right. Thanks, Claire. And I suppose just to say, if there is any questions or any comments, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, and I will try my best to get to them as we go through the webinar as well. So last week, Claire joined us and she brought us through the process of how a gal or a guardian ad litem, we'll refer to them, a guardian as a gal for the purpose of
a gal, yeah, it's probably easier, yeah.
Just easier, yeah. So for the purpose of this webinar. So Claire brought us through the journey of how a gal is appointed through the court, what happens in those instances, and she really talked to us a lot about how meeting the children and like spending time with children, attending meetings, getting to know their circumstances is a massive part of the role as well, because ultimately the role is looking at the needs and best interests of the children who are in care and being able to report then that back. So we're going to focus a little bit more on that today and looking at Claire. So when a gal is appointed, when do they meet the child or the children? Is it, and we know that every child's circumstances or children's circumstances are different, but just a general overview, kind of what would be.
Yeah, so as you said, every child's circumstances are different, you know, and it may depend on where they are also in the country, because as we know, Tuesday may place children who are Dublin, living in Dublin, in Donegal, do you know, so it just, you know, that has to be named, and that's an important part. Every case is different, that's fine, but in our practice standards, what we would kind of recommend or like to see happening with our gals is that they would meet them very, very quickly, very, very quickly after appointment, as quickly as possible, if not the first person. That's the, you know, that's what I would like to see from the gals I'm supervising. That's my, you know, that's my approach. What would stop that happening would be if you're receiving information and if there's a child very unsettled, or if it's very, there may be a need to maybe meet with the social worker first, or to get a better sense before you go up that road to meet that child. But if it's, I suppose from our standards, or from our practice standards, we would be wanting to meet children very, very quickly. Very quickly, yeah.
I suppose, like, when children come into care, there's a lot of people, they're meeting a lot of new people coming in and out of their lives as well. So how do you set that scene with the child of what your role is, and like what the purpose is of meeting them?
We put ourselves in the eyes of the child. Again, in my mind now, I'm thinking of so many different scenarios. The Section 12s where they're being taken out by the guards, or I'm thinking of a kind of slow, social work involvement, where then eventually it comes to a move, whether that's urgent or planned, but it's not the guard. So it's depending on the kind of what the child is being through. So we're looking at, or we're considering how many people they have met, the shock their body must be in. I suppose for me, what's really important, and I say that to people I practice or I supervise, is like, it's almost like this is my language basically. Is like, you're my boss, is in, I'm here to hear from you. So differentiating out from a social worker and whoever else is meeting them. It could be lots of different people, lots of different social workers, even access workers, foster carers, residential staff, depending on their circumstances. So I'm now coming in. Also important to note that we have a booklet for our children when we meet them first, that we should be bringing out to them. So we have a booklet 0 to 10 and then 10 to 18, and it explains who we are. It explains the court and the judge has appointed us. And yeah, there's a few little bits in there for the younger children. It's colourful, and we can do it together and kind of talk through who is a gal, what is a gal, and to acknowledge their experiences, I suppose, is part of it, in terms of differentiating out your social worker is, and this is who I am. And then for the older children, it's a lot more straight to the point, like, these children know more than any of us what's going on in their lives. It's not me coming out and saying, oh, by the way, you're in care. It's me coming out and saying, wow, look at what you've been through in the last few days. I've been appointed by the judge. What's the judge? Okay, so sometimes we refer to Judge Judy, or we say, refer to the book, and we go through the kind of cartoon type drawing and explain that they're the person who's making decisions, and have appointed me, as in asked me to come out and meet you to hear what you want, what you feel, what you think. And we may not always agree, we may not always go with what you're saying, but you can be assured that I'll be telling everybody what you're saying. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of initial, explaining, this is me, I'm here for you. I'm here for you to hear from you. And there's a lot of that relationship building initially with children.
Brilliant. And like, one of the questions that comes, and you've touched on it already, is like, say, for younger children where language maybe, hasn't formed yet, like, or in the case of infants, babies and infants, like, how do you communicate with babies and infants, or
So it's not about communicating with them, it's about observing them with their people. So, how do I assess the, I suppose, circumstances of a newborn baby? So what I do is get around them. I don't hold them, I don't hug them, I don't take them off those who are meant to be caring for them. That's really actually important to me, not to be going in and minding them, because that's then another person, another smell, another change for them. So it's about going into, let's say, a foster home. Well, it should always be a foster home, shouldn't it? That a baby is placed in, or if a young person's nonverbal, or a child is nonverbal. So it's about observing them with their people. Like, body language can tell us an awful lot. So I'm looking at the foster care with the baby, and if the baby's like this, you're looking at flinching, you're looking at movements, you're looking at how they're responding to baby cries. You're watching responses from care too. You're looking at foster carers' own world, and they're kind of, are they regulated? Are they responsive? Are they meeting that baby's needs? You spend time in those circumstances. You might spend a little bit more time than the child who you can get down on the floor and play or draw with and fill out these booklets. With babies, with children who are nonverbal, it's all about observation and being around them. The same with the parent and the access, observation, being around them, not getting involved, not leading it, not supervising it, observing it and looking at, what is the baby telling me, or what is the young child telling me who can't communicate directly. So you're looking at their circumstances through that lens, yeah.
And say we've worked with a lot of parents where English may not be their first language and English may not be the language spoken in the family home. And if in those cases where language is a barrier, or sometimes different cultural sensitivities might be barriers as well, how do you break down those barriers or those challenges?
Yeah. Well, I suppose there is an agreement with TUSLA that we would, there is a interpreter has to be present. This is an agreement with the court equally. So if somebody doesn't have English as their first language and they request an interpreter, or even if there's a sense that an interpreter would be helpful, then they are there through the courts. So our meetings with that person would be, with an interpreter present. It has to be. The second part, I can't remember what you said.
And so if there's say maybe some cultural sensitivities,
huge cultural sense, hugely coming up in this country, so important to consider. And again, there's a migrant family support service that I have worked with so closely over the years, also Advocacy, and also network, they call them in TUSLA, network people, so who's important to you, who can come in if you're feeling like you're not being heard, let's say, and what's important to you is not being considered. So they may be a family friend, or a pastor, or somebody important to them, migrant family service or Advocacy. There's again, I think that's a huge area in this country at the moment that needs to be focused on so much more.
Yeah, and it's challenging because you want to navigate it in a really respectful, mindful manner to get it right as well for the family. Well,
I think naming that is really important, and being really straight about that. These are, so let's say in some circumstances, Black children going into white foster homes, and they're not, in some circumstances it's happening all the time, and it's a lot is lost culturally, a lot is lost for those children. It's shocking how their circumstances are changed in a second, and we expect them just to be, and for the parents not to hold us accountable to ensure that they're okay within that. It's really important, actually. Yeah.
A question just came in there, Claire. You've already answered it around, would you observe access with the parents as well?
But absolutely. My whole day tomorrow is observing access with the parents, and the parents are very, very happy for me to do that, because they want to show, in this case I'm involved in, the relationship, how they're coming along. The dad has organized a day out, he's wherever he's taken us all. And so there's lots of communication before that, lots of discussion before that, so that they feel comfortable and I have their permission to do that. I wouldn't just ever rock up. I would never just show up, ever, ever, ever. And if anybody does, that's a reason to complain. Don't let anybody just rock up to your access. It is discussion, informing, getting permission, and then clearly advising the parent what you're doing. You're not there to supervise it. Of course, if a child comes over to you, you're going to be responsive. You're not sitting there with your book like this, but you're not there to supervise on behalf of TUSLA, if you get me. That's a whole different job. But a lot of permission, a lot of discussion, and a lot of outlining what that looks like on the day. Parents are going to be nervous with this person coming in, this gal coming in, who's the eyes and the ears of the judge, going to feed back. It's all of that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, and one thing parents feed back to us all the time, or in access or review meetings, a lot of the things is around the ending of access, or the dysregulation of children after access, and
Yeah.
sometimes I suppose it's not just cut and dry from our point of view that I think it would be very strange if a child goes to access goes really well, they go home and everything is still fine and fine and fine and fine. We need to expect some dysregulation at different times as well, because it's an alien situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Children and parents as well. So obviously there's a very fine line with that, though, how we assess if access is beneficial to the child or is too dysregulating. And that's one of the.
Yeah. And there's so many, again, it's so circumstantial, isn't it? I would agree with you. If a child left their parent and didn't have any big feelings, or didn't have any kind of, response or need to talk about that or cry or, yeah, have space to kind of process the hugeness of that, then I would agree there's something, wow, okay, so what's going on there? But what I'm hearing maybe between the lines is that maybe parents sometimes feel they're blamed for that, and the access is changed, reduced, whatever, because a child is coming away upset, when I would agree with you that that's not a reason. Now, that would depend on each case. For example, a child might be coming away upset because mummy's coming in with the smell of alcohol, or it's very triggering for the child, or something has happened within that has brought the child to a place where, that, like, everybody knows that themselves. There is always a reason why access may need to reduce down, because the child is naming. But if the child is just naming or showing or playing in a way that's a bit boisterous, or a bit kind of showing they're moving in a different way after access, I think that all needs to be okay. But I think parents have a right through themselves, their advocates and their solicitors, to question all of that intensively. You're saying you're reducing access because of the child being upset afterwards. What do you mean? What is he showing? What is she showing? Why is that not okay if they're showing that? You're telling me access has gone really well. Yeah, parents can feel very empowered in that, I would hope, to be able to name, that's not a reason to reduce access.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to do that, I think, for parents, because sometimes they never want to rock the boat, because access is so important, that, or family time is so important, that
Yeah.
they don't want to question, and in case it's taken. So there's a real fear. There's a lot of emotions.
Power dynamic. There's a power dynamic. It's huge. It's a massive issue. Yeah.
So one of the questions that comes up all the time with parents as well is, my child is telling me they want this, but then the gal and in court they're hearing, but in the best interest of the child, this is what's going to happen. So how do you balance that? And I think you alluded to it earlier,
Yeah.
Claire, of what the child is telling you they want and what they need and what's in their best interest.
Exactly. It's something that we work with every single day. What I would always assure the child, and depending on the age of the child, sometimes I can show them in my report how I've reflected their views. And sometimes they just trust me because they know me and they know that I'm up in that stand, literally saying their words, swear parts and all. Sorry, Judge. But that's their truth. They're expressing what their needs or what they're saying they want, and they're expressing it so strongly. And when you have a relationship with a child, what I always reassure them about is that will be reflected. As I said, some children will be like, how do I know that? I can show them, the section of that part of my report, children's views, and X said, I effing hate the judge and I want to go home, and I am tired of this waiting and either doing nothing. So I'm reflecting that, and then child is like, thank you. The difference then, as I always say from the outset of my relationship building with a child, is that we may not always agree. And what you can be assured of is that I will always act in your best interest. There's some the opposite way too, where children, the plan is for unification and they're saying, no, I don't want to, I don't, like, I'm scared, I don't feel safe, or and that's a really difficult one also for the parent, and the parent to hear that and to hold that. So yeah, it's a constant area that comes up, and I think the most important thing is that we give children the fullest permission, parents included, to say whatever it is their truth, and to reflect that really clearly, even if it's different from what is being recommended as in their best interest. What I would always do with my young people or children is be straight with them. I hear you. I hear you're saying that. I hear you. I'm going to reflect it. I'm going to tell the judge. It's in my report. I hear you, but I think, and obviously I'd use me child-friendly language, but basically I think it's not safe, or I think, it's from my point of view, I feel it's better, or we're worried about, or yeah, it's not possible. So it is about being honest with the child, and also just from the outset advising the child that I will always represent what you've got to say. I'll never change your words. But we may not always agree on what's best, or what's what's being recommended, and that is part of our job, which is to represent the best interests of the children, and also represent and report back their views.
That's great. Thanks, Claire. I have two questions that have come in for you. One is a curveball one, so I'm going to hold that for a minute. But the first question is around, would you make recommendations to the judge in terms of that to increase access, or that we should be moving towards unsupervised access, or is that a TULSA recommendation?
No way. That's 100% my recommendation if it's assessed as being required, or if it's assessed as being in the best interest. I've come back into a case recently where I was shocked. The dad is doing unreal in his life. Like, he's just a different character than he was when he was drinking and drugging and just really struggling with himself and the world. And here he is now, living, maintaining relationships and everything. I came back into a case as reappointed, and the access was still being fully supervised. I was like, nah. Went down, met him, met the kids. So there they are now, just off the phone before this, off going down for an overnight to him. Do you know what I mean? So, like, 1,000% make recommendations to, in the best interest of the children on access, if it is assessed as the best for those children. Yeah, even if TUSA don't like it, even if it's not what they're. So yes, and again, it works the other way, doesn't it?
Yeah,
if you're observing and accessing, you're really concerned, then you'd be asking TUSA to look at it.
I think that gives parents a lot of hope if they're really working towards changing what has led their family into this situation, and they've made massive changes. It does give them a lot of hope, because sometimes parents feel they're stuck, and it's back to that power dynamic and fear of asking as well, or fear of advocating for themselves for change. So I imagine there's a lot of parents would have a lot of hope from hearing that. So our little not a curveball question, but you hear this a lot actually, but parents whose children are having multiple moves whilst in care, their placements are breaking down, or their short-term placements. They may be children under 12 in residential care, and having multiple moves that, as we all know, aren't great for children. They need stability and they need safety. And a parent is often saying, but I'm doing really well now. Can they come home with me? Can they come home with me? Can they come home with me? The risks now they're exposed to, are how are they measuring up to the original risks, say, in the family home? If it was domestic violence, for example, and the partner has left, the abusive partner has now since left the home, and things like that. How do you navigate those situations?
Yeah, I don't think that's a curveball. I think that is bang on, whoever asked it or whoever brought it to the forum. It's one of the most heartbreaking points of where we are at in July 2025, with the placement crisis that TUSA are experiencing. No foster carers, no residential SEAs, children being placed all around this country, moved, placements breaking down for whatever reasons, ending. It is heartbreaking, and I would only hope that, I know in my cases, if there is, and in fact, that question was asked only very recently, you know, we've and the child's at home, we've you know, a young person, teenager, who couldn't stay at home. They were telling the world it was too tough and it was just breaking down. So what did TUSLA provide that child? SEA asked after SEA, an emergency res, but then SEA. He couldn't tolerate it. He couldn't tolerate it. So what did I do? I was telling everybody that he cannot tolerate what you're providing him. It's not okay. But we were out with those parents all of the time. They were so angry with TUSLA. They were so angry with me. They were so angry with the judge because they didn't want their child to be in care. But we did everything to try and break down that anger and put it aside almost to just go, me. I'm saying we, being me and the social worker, really closely on this one, to look at like what's happening at home compared to what you're asking, you as in TUSLA are asking. And I'm very clear, I'm not asking you, TUSLA are asking you to go into this circumstance with something that I'm not even happy about, and I wouldn't stay. That's how I measure it. Would I stay here? Would I move here? No. Would I want my child to live here or move here? No. So why would I expect that child to? Why is that okay for that child? It's not okay. So it's something we come up against or come across all the time. And I would hope that people in my role and social workers are looking at that exact point. What's happening in the home? What can we do to make that better? What can we do to build a network up so that the child can go back there? We're not saying the concerns are not there. We're not saying the instance that happened didn't happen. We're not reducing anything here. The threshold is being met clearly at the outset, or the child wouldn't be in care. But what are we asking that child to do? It's intolerable at times in this country. So we need to dive into that house. We need to dive into that family, extended family, and see, can we do better with the resources that child has directly around them, including their parents. And as I said, in recent times, I've won, and I'm out of it. I'm discharged, and I'm delighted because he hasn't texted me in a month. And I'm like, yes, he's okay. He's safe. He's home. So it does happen. It's a very valid question. And as you can probably see from me, I'm livid about it in terms of what we're asking our kids to do who are in the most vulnerable positions of their childhoods. And there we are asking them to tolerate these moves and these changes. Yeah, it's something that I feel very strongly about.
And it's key, isn't it, the point you made, Claire, about that collaboration piece. It has, like, we are in a situation where there isn't enough placements, there isn't enough appropriate placements, but it is that piece about working in collaboration, everybody, to look at a bigger picture and other options as well.
100%, yeah.
Way that it's not just, and that we're all stakeholders within this as well, that whereas we may not have the statutory powers, but that we all keep the child at the centre of it as well.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
That time just flew by. So we're just going to finish up now, but the next webinar, I don't have a date yet, but we're going to be talking to Claire about what she's just touched on today, is actually forming the report and how that happens and goes to the judge and things like that, and just looking at a little bit of the process then. And but again, thank you to everybody for attending. I'm going to put up our feedback form as well, and links to our website, and that can bring you on for any further information. And please submit any questions you would like for our next webinar. So thank you, Claire, so much for coming today.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
I'll stay on for a few minutes to just allow people to give us our feedback forms. And again, all of our previous webinar links are there as well. Our website link is there as well. And just to remind people, we have a free phone number as well that you can contact any of our advocates directly, and we will be happy to answer any of the questions that may have come up for you for today. I'll stop talking because I'm sure people are sick at the sound of my voice, and I'll just let people hopefully gives us some feedback. Thank you all again.